The massive hunting vessel drifted through the dark emptiness of space like a predator stalking its prey. Inside the ship's main chamber, 4 towering figures gathered around a holographic display that showed star charts of unexplored regions. These were the Ravik, and they had never met anything they could not hunt down and kill, Commander. Thane stood 8 feet tall with scales that gleamed like polished obsidian under the ship's lights. His yellow eyes studied the floating map while his clawed fingers traced patterns in the air. For 300 years, he had led the most successful hunting pack in the galaxy. No creature had ever escaped them for long. "The signal came from here," said Voss, pointing at a small yellow star on the edge of the map. The tracker's enhanced senses could detect prey from incredible distances, and his nose twitched constantly as if smelling something new. A species calling themselves humans. They claimed to need help with some kind of dangerous creature. Kira examined her weapons collection spread across a nearby table. The specialist had collected trophies from every hunt, and her arsenal contained technology from dozens of defeated civilizations. Probably another weak species that stumbled into something they cannot handle, she said while checking the power cells on her plasma rifle. The 4th member of their pack, Rel, studied tactical data on his personal screen. His mind worked like a computer, calculating every possible angle of attack and escape route. Initial scans suggest they are primitive, no advanced weapons detected. Basic space travel capability only. Commander Thane's mouth curved into what might have been a smile, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. The Ravik had built their reputation by taking contracts other species would never dare accept. When dangerous criminals escaped into the void, when rogue artificial intelligences went wild, when ancient creatures awakened from deep space hibernation, the galaxy called upon the Ravik to solve these problems permanently. What kind of creature are they dealing with? Thane asked. Voss consulted his instruments again. Unknown. The transmission was badly damaged. Something about multiple contacts and containment failures. They seemed frightened. This was exactly the kind of situation the Ravik lived for. Throughout their history, they had encountered every type of predator the galaxy could produce. The crystalline hunters of the Vega system had seemed invincible until the Ravik learned to shatter their bodies with sonic weapons. The shadow beasts that phased between dimensions had terrorized 3-star systems before the Ravik developed tracking methods that could follow them through space-time itself. "Set course for this sol system," Thane commanded. "Another hunt awaits." U.S. The ship's engines hummed to life, propelling them toward what they assumed would be another routine mission. The Ravik had developed their hunting techniques over millions of years of evolution. Their homeworld had been a brutal place where only the strongest and smartest predators survived. Every aspect of their biology had been shaped by the need to track, corner, and kill. Their hearing could detect heartbeats from half a mile away. Their vision could pick up heat signatures and track movement that other species would miss entirely. Most importantly, their minds were perfectly adapted for hunting behavior. They could predict how prey would react under pressure, where it would try to hide, and what mistakes it would make when panic set in. During the journey to the Sol system, the hunting pack prepared their equipment and reviewed their standard procedures. They had developed these methods through centuries of successful hunts, and every step had been tested against the galaxy's most dangerous creatures. First, they would observe their target from a distance to understand its capabilities and behavior patterns. Then they would make contact to assess the threat level and determine if they needed additional resources. Most species required different approaches, but the Ravik had learned to adapt quickly to any situation. "Tell me about their distress signal again," Thane said as they approached the outer edge of the Sol system. Voss pulled up the recorded transmission. Static filled the air, followed by a human voice speaking in broken galactic common. "This is Research Station Europa calling any ships in range. We have encountered hostile alien life forms, multiple species. Some contained, but situation is unstable. Need assistance from experienced hunters or military forces. Coordinates attached. Multiple species?" Rel looked up from his tactical planning. "That is unusual. Most systems have only one apex predator. Kira shrugged while cleaning her favorite hunting knife. Maybe they found some kind of prison ship or research facility. We have seen that before. The Ravik ship's sensors began picking up detailed information about the Sol system as they moved deeper into it. They detected a yellow star with several planets, including one blue world that seemed to support massive amounts of life. Most interesting was the amount of artificial structures scattered throughout the system. These humans have been busy, Voss observed. Stations around multiple planets. Ships moving between them, more advanced than we thought. Fang studied the sensor readings with growing interest. Usually, when a species achieved spaceflight, they either became hunters themselves or quickly fell victim to something stronger. These humans seem to have survived long enough to build an impressive civilization across their entire star system. There, Rel pointed at a large structure orbiting the fifth planet. That matches the coordinates from their distress signal. The research station was enormous, easily large enough to house thousands of individuals. As their ship approached, automated systems began broadcasting welcome messages in multiple languages. The humans seemed eager to make contact, which struck the Ravik as odd behavior for a species supposedly under threat. Most prey species try to hide when predators arrive, Kira commented. Perhaps they are desperate enough to trust anyone who might help them, Thane replied. A human voice crackled through their communication system, speaking Galactic Common with surprising fluency. Unknown vessel, this is Dr. Walsh aboard Research Station Europa. We received your response to our distress call. Permission to come aboard has been granted? Docking Bay 7 is prepared for your arrival, the Ravik exchanged glances. In their experience, species facing dangerous predators were usually too panicked for such organized responses. These humans seemed remarkably calm for creatures supposedly cowering from some terrible threat as their ship docked with the human station. Commander Thane felt the familiar excitement that came before every hunt. Soon they would assess this new species, understand whatever threat they faced, and add another successful mission to their legendary reputation. None of them suspected they were about to encounter something that would challenge everything they believed about predators and prey. The airlock cycled open with a soft hiss, and the Ravik hunters stepped onto the human research station expecting to find chaos and fear. Instead, they discovered something that immediately put them on edge. Complete calm and organization. Doctor Walsh waited for them in the docking bay, flanked by two other humans in clean white uniforms. She was a small woman by Ravik standards, barely reaching Thane's chest, with graying hair and intelligent eyes behind thin glasses. When she smiled and extended her hand in greeting, the gesture seemed genuine rather than desperate. Welcome to Europa Station, she said in perfect Galactic Common. I am Dr. Emma Walsh, the research director here. Thank you for responding to our call. Thane looked down at the offered hand, puzzled by this strange ritual. Most species either bowed in submission or prepared for battle when meeting the Ravik for the first time. This human seemed to expect some kind of physical contact as a greeting. I am Commander Thane of the Ravik Hunting Guild, he replied carefully, touching the human's tiny hand with one clawed finger. We received your distress signal about dangerous creatures. Yes, we have had some interesting encounters lately, Dr. Walsh said, leading them deeper into the station. Nothing we cannot handle, but we thought it would be valuable to get expert opinions from experienced hunters like yourselves. The phrase "nothing we cannot handle" struck the Ravik as odd. If the situation was under control, why send a distress signal? As they walked through the station's corridors, they observed more strange behavior from the humans they encountered. Scientists and technicians went about their work with no signs of stress or fear. Children played in recreational areas while adults watched with relaxed expressions. The atmosphere felt more like a peaceful research facility than a station under siege from dangerous alien predators. How many hostile creatures are you dealing with? Voss asked, his enhanced senses searching for any trace of threat. Currently, we have specimens from 6 different aggressive species in our containment facilities. Dr. Walsh replied casually. Would you like to see them? The Ravik exchanged confused glances. Specimens? Containment facilities? These terms suggested the humans had somehow captured the dangerous creatures rather than simply hiding from them. Dr. Walsh led them to a massive observation deck overlooking a series of reinforced chambers. Through thick transparent barriers, the Ravik could see creatures that made their scales crawl with instinctive fear. In the first chamber, a void stalker paced endlessly back and forth. The creature was 12 feet long with midnight black skin that seemed to absorb light itself. Its 6 legs ended in claws that could cut through starship hulls, and its elongated head contained rows of teeth designed for tearing apart prey. The Ravik had encountered void stalkers before, and even their most experienced hunters usually required teams of 20 or more to bring one down. This one was our first contact with hostile alien life, Dr. Walsh explained, tapping notes into a handheld device. Appeared near Mars about 6 months ago. Attacked one of our mining stations. How did you capture it alive? Kira asked, her voice tight with disbelief. Trial and error mostly, the doctor replied. We lost the first mining station, but we learned from the encounter. The second attack went much better. In the next chamber, something that looked like a cross between a spider and a shark pressed itself against the barrier, trying to reach the observers with barbed tentacles. The creature's multiple eyes tracked their movement while its mouth opened and closed, revealing circular rows of grinding teeth. Tunnel Ripper, Rel identified. They usually hunt in packs underground. How many did you encounter? 7 in the original group, Dr. Walsh said, checking her notes. We managed to capture 3 alive. The others we had to study from the remains. The casual way she mentioned studying the remains of deadly predators made Thane's blood run cold. These humans spoke about encountering apex predators the way his people might discuss hunting small game. The third chamber held something that even veteran Ravik hunters rarely survived meeting. A phase beast flickered in and out of visible reality, its semi-transparent form suggesting it existed partially in another dimension. When these creatures attacked, they could reach through solid matter to strike at prey, making them nearly impossible to defend against. This specimen has been particularly useful for our research into dimensional physics, Dr. Walsh continued. We have learned so much about how it shifts between phases. Research? Voss stepped closer to the barrier, his tracking instincts trying to understand what he was seeing. You are studying them? Of course. Dr. Walsh looked surprised by the question. How else would we learn to defend ourselves against future encounters? Commander Thane felt something he had never experienced before in his 3 centuries. Of hunting, genuine confusion about who was the predator and who was the prey. Every instinct told him that the creatures in these chambers were among the most dangerous beings in the galaxy, yet these small, seemingly defenseless humans had somehow captured and contained them. I do not understand, he said finally. Your species appears to lack natural weapons or enhanced senses. How did you defeat creatures that challenge even experienced Ravik hunters? Dr. Walsh tilted her head thoughtfully. Would you like to see our methods? I think you might find them interesting. She led them to another section of the station where humans in protective gear worked with various pieces of equipment. Some devices the Ravik recognized as standard scientific instruments, but others were completely unfamiliar. When we first encountered the Void Stalker, we lost 47 people, Dr. Walsh explained matter-of-factly. But we recovered enough sensor data to understand how it hunted. The creature relied on stealth and surprise, attacking from darkness when prey felt safe. She activated a holographic display showing the mining station attack. The Ravik watched as the Void Stalker appeared seemingly from nowhere, tearing through human defenses with devastating efficiency. So we changed our approach, the doctor continued. Instead of trying to outfight it, we studied its behavior patterns. We learned when it preferred to attack, how it chose targets, what made it retreat. The next hologram showed a different encounter. This time, humans used coordinated tactics that forced the Void Stalker into predetermined kill zones. Bright lights eliminated its stealth advantage while carefully placed explosives channeled its movement into areas where containment fields could trap it. The key was understanding that every predator has weaknesses, Dr. Walsh said. We just had to be patient enough to find them and smart enough to exploit them. Kira examined the containment equipment with professional interest. Your technology is impressive, but how did you develop it so quickly? Most species take generations to create effective defenses against apex predators. We had advantages, Dr. Walsh replied with what might have been a smile. We are very good at learning from our mistakes. And we have had a lot of practice dealing with dangerous creatures. Practice? Thane asked. Perhaps you would like to visit Earth itself? The doctor suggested. I think seeing our homeworld might help explain how we developed our current capabilities. The Ravik agreed, though they were beginning to suspect this mission would be unlike any hunt they had ever undertaken. As their ship departed the research station toward the blue planet, none of them realized they were about to discover something that would shake their understanding of what it meant to be a predator. Earth hung before them like a blue and green jewel against the black of space. But as the Ravik ship descended through the atmosphere, they began to notice details that disturbed them greatly. The planet's surface showed scars that spoke of massive conflicts. Yet human civilization appeared to have grown stronger rather than weaker from these experiences. Colonel Rivers met them at the landing pad outside Geneva Spaceport, his bearing and movement immediately identifying him as a warrior. Despite his lack of natural weapons or armor, the human military officer possessed an alertness that reminded Thane of veteran hunters. But there was something different about his predatory awareness that the Ravik commander could not quite identify. Dr. Walsh contacted us about your visit, Rivers said as he escorted them toward a nearby facility. She thought you might be interested in learning about human defensive capabilities. The building they entered contained what humans called a museum, but the Ravik quickly realized it was actually a detailed study of warfare techniques. Holographic displays showed thousands of years of human conflict in stunning detail, and the sophistication of the violence on display made even experienced hunters feel uncomfortable. This is how your species learned to fight alien predators? Voss asked, studying a recreation of an ancient battle where thousands of humans fought each other with primitive weapons. Not exactly, Colonel Rivers replied, activating another display. This is how we learned to fight each other. The alien encounters were much more recent. The next hologram showed humans in more advanced armor using energy weapons against other humans in identical equipment. The tactical complexity of the battle was remarkable, with both sides adapting their strategies in real time as the conflict progressed. I do not understand, Rel said, his analytical mind struggling with the concept. Why would members of the same species fight each other with such intensity? Colonel Rivers paused the display and turned to face the Ravik hunters. That is probably the most important question you could ask about humanity. We have been at war with ourselves for our entire recorded history. He activated a series of displays showing the progression of human warfare across millennia. The Ravik watched in growing horror as humans demonstrated their capacity for increasingly sophisticated violence. Not against alien threats or natural predators, but against other humans who shared identical capabilities and intelligence. Every weapon you see here was designed to kill other humans, the colonel explained. Every tactic was developed to outthink opponents who understood exactly how we think. Every strategy was tested against enemies who knew our weaknesses because they shared them. Kira examined displays showing human weapons development with professional interest mixed with revulsion. Your species has spent thousands of years perfecting ways to kill yourselves, not just kill, Rivers corrected. We developed concepts like total war, where the goal is complete destruction of enemy capability. Psychological warfare designed to break the will to fight. Guerrilla tactics that turn entire populations into potential combatants. The colonel led them to a section dedicated to what humans called their world wars. The scale of destruction was almost incomprehensible to the Ravik, who had always fought as small hunting packs against individual targets. In our second global conflict, we mobilized entire civilizations for combat, Rivers explained. Every factory became a weapons manufacturer. Every scientist worked on military applications. Every citizen became part of the war effort. Thane studied a display showing human industrial capacity during wartime. You turned your entire species into a hunting pack? More than that, the colonel replied. We learned to innovate under pressure. When one side developed new weapons, the other side had to create countermeasures or face extinction. This drove technological advancement at an incredible pace. The next section focused on human special forces, and here the Ravik began to understand why these seemingly weak creatures had been so successful against alien predators. The displays showed humans who had been trained to operate alone behind enemy lines, hunting other humans who possessed identical knowledge and training. These soldiers can survive for weeks without support in hostile territory, Rivers said, showing footage of humans moving through environments that would challenge even Ravik endurance. They can track enemies across any terrain while avoiding detection themselves. Voss watched humans demonstrating stalking techniques that impressed even his enhanced senses. They hunt other humans. The most dangerous game, Rivers confirmed. An enemy who knows all your tactics because they learned the same ones. Who can predict your movements because they would make the same choices? Who understands your psychology because they share it? Rel studied tactical displays with growing unease. How does anyone win such conflicts? Adaptation, the colonel replied simply. Whoever learns faster and adapts more effectively gains the advantage. But that advantage is always temporary because the other side learns from defeat and develops new approaches. The final section of the museum focused on modern human military doctrine, and here the Ravik encountered concepts that challenged their fundamental understanding of warfare. Humans had developed strategies for fighting enemies they had never encountered, based on centuries of experience fighting themselves. When we met our first alien predator, we already knew how to analyze enemy capabilities and develop countermeasures, Rivers explained. We had thousands of years of experience adapting to new threats and learning from failure. Kira examined displays showing human analysis of the Void Stalker attack. You treated it like any other enemy? We treated it like a problem to be solved, the colonel corrected. That is what human warfare really is, applied problem solving under lethal pressure. Commander Thane felt something cold growing in his chest as he began to understand what they were seeing. Your species has been at war with itself for millennia? Constant. Conflict shaped our evolution, Rivers confirmed. Not physical evolution, but cultural and technological evolution. Every generation had to be smarter and more adaptable than the last, or they would be conquered by neighbors who were. The Ravik exchanged glances as the implications sank in. They had evolved to hunt prey that tried to hide or run. These humans had evolved to hunt enemies that fought back with equal intelligence and determination. The alien predators we have encountered are dangerous, Rivers continued, but they are also predictable. They follow instinctive behavior patterns that can be analyzed and countered. Human enemies were much more challenging because they could change their tactics as quickly as we could. He activated one final display showing recent human encounters with alien threats. In every case, humans had studied their opponents, identified weaknesses, and developed effective countermeasures with remarkable speed. We are good at fighting alien predators for the same reason we are good at fighting each other, the colonel concluded. We have spent our entire history learning to survive against intelligent enemies who wanted to destroy us. As they prepared to leave the museum, Thane asked the question that had been troubling him. If humans are so effective at warfare, why did you send a distress signal? Colonel Rivers smiled, and for the first time the Ravik saw something in his expression that made their predatory instincts scream warnings. Who said we were asking for help? Dr. Walsh thought you might be interested in a demonstration of human capabilities. Demonstration? A hunt, Rivers replied. Would you be interested in seeing how humans track dangerous prey? The jungle world of Kepler 438c stretched endlessly in all directions. its dense canopy blocking most sunlight and creating a maze of shadows that even Ravik's senses found challenging to penetrate. Commander Thane crouched behind massive tree roots, listening to the sounds of the alien forest while checking his equipment one final time. 3 days had passed since the hunt began, and the Ravik were discovering that being prey felt very different from being predators. The humans had given them a 12-hour head start and allowed them to choose their own hiding spots across the planet's surface. It should have been more than enough advantage for the galaxy's most skilled hunters. Instead, Thane found himself questioning every decision as he moved through the undergrowth. The human hunting team consisted of only 2 individuals, Agent Stone, a former Special Forces operator, and Dr. Kim, an evolutionary biologist. 2 humans tracking 4 Ravik. Across an entire planet should have been impossible. His communicator buzzed softly with an incoming message from Voss. "Something is wrong," the tracker's voice whispered. "I keep finding signs that they have been in my area, but I never see them directly." "Explain," Thane replied, keeping his own voice low despite knowing the humans were probably too far away to hear broken branches that could be natural, but they form patterns. Disturbed ground that might be animal tracks, but they point toward my hiding spots. It is like they know where I am going before I get there. Kira's voice joined the conversation. "I am having the same experience. Yesterday I found a tree marked with what looked like natural scratches, but when I examined them closely, they formed an arrow pointing toward my camp. The weapons specialist had chosen to hide in a rocky canyon where her equipment would give her maximum advantage. She possessed sensors that could detect movement from miles away and weapons that could eliminate targets at extreme range. Yet somehow the humans were moving through her area without triggering any alarms. They are playing with us," Rel concluded. The tactical expert had positioned himself near a river where multiple escape routes would be available if the humans got too close. "This is not hunting behavior. They are demonstrating that they can find us whenever they choose." Thane felt his scales crawl with an emotion he rarely experienced, genuine fear. Not the excitement of facing dangerous prey, but the cold terror of realizing he had become the hunted. "All units maintain positions and stay alert. They have to make their move eventually." But as the hours passed, the psychological pressure began to mount. The humans never showed themselves directly, but evidence of their presence appeared everywhere. Footprints in soft earth that vanished on hard ground. Bent grass that suggested recent passage. Most disturbing of all, small objects that had clearly been placed deliberately. A protein bar wrapper near Voss's water source. A medical bandage tied to a branch Kira used as a landmark. The message was clear. "We know exactly where you are. And we have been close enough to touch you." On the morning of the 4th day, Thane made a decision that went against every instinct his species possessed. He activated his emergency beacon, signaling surrender to end the hunt. Agent Stone appeared within minutes, seeming to materialize from empty forest with no warning. The human was smaller than any of the Ravik, with no visible weapons or armor. Yet his presence radiated confidence that made Thane's predatory instincts scream contradictory warnings. "Interesting choice of hiding spot," Stone said conversationally. "Most predator species try to find elevated positions where they can observe approaches. You chose thick cover that limited your vision but made you feel secure. How did you find us so quickly?" Thane asked. "We never lost you," the human replied. "Would you like to see?" Stone activated a handheld device that projected holographic images showing the entire hunt from the human perspective. Thane watched in growing disbelief as the display revealed that he and his pack had been under constant observation since the moment they landed. Dr. Kim identified your species' likely behavior patterns based on evolutionary psychology, Stone explained. Ravik are ambush predators who prefer to control territory rather than constantly move. You would choose defensive positions near resources like water or food sources. The hologram showed the planet's surface marked with probability zones where Ravik were most likely to hide. Every location Thane's pack had chosen fell within the predicted areas. "Once we knew your general locations, tracking became a matter," Of patience, Stone continued. We used local wildlife to monitor your movements, scent markers to track your paths, remote sensors to observe your behavior patterns. Thane realized that what he had interpreted as natural forest sounds had actually been human surveillance equipment disguised to blend with the environment. The humans had turned the entire jungle into a monitoring system, but we never saw you directly, he protested. Because we did not want you to, Stone replied. Direct contact would have ended the hunt too quickly. We wanted to study your responses to different types of pressure. The hologram showed human movement patterns throughout the hunt. Stone and Dr. Kim had been within a few hundred yards of the Ravik at all times, close enough to strike, but choosing instead to gather information about their prey's psychology. The marked trees and planted objects were psychological warfare, Stone explained. We wanted to make you feel observed and vulnerable. Fear changes decision-making patterns and reveals personality traits that normal observation might miss. Other Ravik voices began appearing on Thane's communicator as his pack. Members also activated their surrender beacons. One by one, they found themselves facing the same reality. They had been outmatched by opponents who seemed to understand them better than they understood themselves. When the hunting pack reunited at the extraction point, they discovered that Dr. Kim had prepared detailed psychological profiles of each team member based on their behavior during the hunt. Voss relies too heavily on his enhanced senses, she explained, reading from her notes. When those senses provide conflicting information, he becomes indecisive and predictable. Kira trusts her technology more than her instincts, the doctor continued. She chose positions that maximized her equipment advantages but ignored natural camouflage. Rel overthinks tactical situations. He spent so much time analyzing potential threats that he missed obvious signs of our presence. When she reached Thane, Dr. Kim paused thoughtfully. The commander is interesting. He adapted his behavior several times during the hunt, but he was always reacting to our actions rather than taking initiative. How could you know so much about us from such? A short encounter? Thane asked. We have been studying predator psychology for thousands of years, Dr. Kim replied. Every human military conflict has been a test of our ability to understand and predict enemy behavior. Your species follows patterns that we learned to recognize long ago. Agent Stone checked his equipment while explaining their methods. Human hunters do not just track prey through physical evidence. We study psychology, predict decision-making patterns, and manipulate environmental factors to control behavior. You turn the hunt into a controlled experiment, Rel realized. Every hunt is an experiment, Stone confirmed. We learn something new about our targets and about ourselves. That knowledge makes us more effective in future encounters. As they prepared to leave the jungle world, Thane found himself asking the question that had been troubling him since the hunt began. What makes humans so effective at this type of warfare? Dr. Kim and Agent Stone exchanged glances before the scientist answered. We have been hunting our own species for millennia. Every technique we used against you was originally developed for tracking other humans. Humans who knew all our methods and could think just as clearly as we could, Stone added. If you can successfully hunt someone who shares your intelligence and training, hunting alien predators becomes much simpler. The return journey to Earth passed in thoughtful silence as the Ravik processed what they had experienced. They had encountered something that challenged every assumption about predator and prey. Relationships in the galaxy. These humans were not successful because they were physically superior or technologically advanced. They were dangerous because they had spent their entire evolutionary history learning to outthink and outmaneuver opponents who possessed identical capabilities and intelligence. For the first time in their long careers as hunters, the Ravik began to wonder if they had finally encountered something that was better at the game than they were. The conference room aboard Research Station Europa felt different now that the Ravik understood what they were really seeing. The same displays that had initially puzzled them with captured alien predators now told a completely different story. About human capabilities and intentions. Dr. Walsh sat across from Commander Thane and his hunting pack, her demeanor as calm and professional as it had been during their first meeting, but the Ravik no longer saw her as a weak creature seeking help from superior predators. They now recognized her as something far more dangerous, a scientist who studied problems until she could solve them permanently. "I apologize for the deception," she began, though her tone suggested she was not particularly sorry. "But we needed to understand what kind of species we were dealing with before revealing our true situation." "True situation?" Voss asked, though his enhanced senses told him he probably did not want to know the answer. Dr. Walsh activated the room's main display, showing a star map of the local galactic region. Red markers indicated locations where humans had encountered hostile alien life, and there were far more markers than any of the Ravik had expected. "We have been in contact with aggressive species for over 2 years now," she explained. The distress signal was not a call for help. It was an invitation to observe our research methods. The map showed dozens of first contact scenarios, each one involving species that the Ravik recognized as dangerous predators. In every case, the encounters had ended with human victory and the capture of specimens for study. "How is this possible?" Rel demanded. "Some of these species have terrorized entire star systems. They terrorize species that tried to fight them using conventional predator-prey dynamics," Dr. Walsh corrected. "We approached each encounter as a research problem that needed solving." She activated detailed files showing human analysis of each alien species they had encountered. The depth of study was remarkable, covering everything from biological capabilities to psychological behavior patterns to technological weaknesses. "Take the Void Stalkers, for example," she continued, pulling up the file on the creature they had seen in containment. Previous encounters by other species focused on their stealth capabilities and physical strength. We studied their hunting patterns and realized they were actually quite predictable. The display showed human research data revealing that Void Stalkers always attacked from specific angles based on their prey's sensory limitations. Once humans understood this pattern, they could position themselves to force the creatures into predetermined kill zones. "Every species we have encountered follows similar patterns," Dr. Walsh explained. "They evolved to be effective against prey that reacts instinctively to threat. Humans do not react instinctively. We analyze, adapt, and respond strategically." Kira studied the files with growing unease. "You have captured specimens from species that most civilizations would never even attempt to engage." "Because most civilizations think like prey," the doctor replied. "They see a dangerous predator and try to avoid it or defend against it. We see a problem that can be solved through careful study and systematic approach." Commander Thane felt the last pieces of the puzzle falling into place as he understood what humans really represented in the galactic ecosystem. "You are not just another predator species. You are something that hunts predators." "We are problem solvers," Dr. Walsh corrected. "And in a galaxy full of dangerous creatures, every life form is just another problem waiting to be solved." She showed them recordings of human expansion into space, revealing a pattern that made the Ravik's blood run cold. Whenever humans encountered a hostile species, they did not simply defend themselves or retreat. They studied their attackers until they could predict their behavior, then systematically hunted down and captured specimens from the entire species. "This is why we invited you here," Dr. Walsh continued. "The Ravik have a reputation as the galaxy's most effective hunters. We wanted to understand your methods and capabilities." "By making us the prey," Thane realized. "By giving you the opportunity to demonstrate your skills in a controlled environment," she replied diplomatically. Agent Stone entered the conference room carrying a detailed report about the hunting demonstration. "The results were quite informative," he said, taking a seat beside Dr. Walsh. "Ravik hunting techniques are impressive but rely heavily on physical advantages and instinctive behavior prediction. Your species evolved to hunt prey that follows predictable patterns," Dr. Kim added, joining the conversation. "Animals that panic when threatened, criminals who make emotional decisions under pressure, creatures that rely on natural instincts for survival." Humans do not follow those patterns, Stone continued. We have spent millennia training ourselves to suppress panic responses and think clearly under extreme pressure. Your hunting methods are not effective against opponents who can outthink them. The Ravik sat in stunned silence as they processed this information. Their entire identity as the galaxy's apex predators was based on techniques that humans had rendered obsolete simply by being better at the mental game of hunting. What do you intend to do with this knowledge? Thane asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Dr. Walsh smiled, and this time the Ravik recognized the expression for what it truly was, the satisfaction of a researcher who had successfully completed an important experiment. We are expanding our presence in the galaxy, she said simply. Every species we encounter teaches us something new about survival, adaptation, and problem-solving. The more we learn, the better we become at handling whatever challenges we might face. She activated another display showing human ships beginning to appear in star systems across the local region. Unlike invasion fleets or trading expeditions, these vessels moved with the systematic purpose of researchers gathering data. You are studying the entire galaxy, Voss whispered. We are learning, Dr. Walsh corrected. Every civilization, every creature, every threat represents knowledge that might prove valuable someday. We have learned that the universe is a dangerous place, and the only way to survive is to understand everything in it. The implications were staggering. Humans were not just another species competing for resources or territory. They were systematically cataloging and analyzing every form of life they encountered, building a comprehensive understanding of galactic threats and capabilities. The specimens in your containment facilities, Rel said, his analytical mind working through the possibilities. You are not just studying them, you are learning to become them. Dr. Kim nodded approvingly. Very perceptive. We study predator capabilities not just to defend against them, but to incorporate their advantages into our own methods when appropriate. She showed them footage of human soldiers using equipment based on alien predator biology. Stealth systems derived from Voidstalker research. Tracking technology inspired by phase beast dimensional abilities. Psychological warfare techniques. Adapted from species that hunted through fear and intimidation. Every encounter makes us more effective, Agent Stone explained. We do not just defeat our enemies. We learn from them and become stronger. Commander Thane understood now why the human distress signal had felt wrong from the beginning. These creatures had never been in distress. They had been setting a trap, not for the purpose of capture or destruction, but for the far more dangerous goal of understanding and learning. You wanted to study us, he said. We wanted to understand what made the Ravik so successful as hunters, Dr. Walsh confirmed. Your reputation suggested you possessed techniques or insights that we had not yet encountered. And now that you have studied us? The doctor consulted her notes thoughtfully. Your species has excellent physical capabilities and well-developed hunting instincts. But your methods are ultimately limited by your evolutionary programming. You're very good at being Ravik, but you cannot easily become something else. Humans are different, Dr. Kim added. We have no fixed evolutionary niche. We adapt to whatever challenges we face and incorporate successful traits from other species. This makes us extremely dangerous in the long term. Agent Stone activated a final display showing human expansion projections across the galaxy. The pattern was clear: systematic exploration, careful study of each species encountered, and gradual incorporation of useful capabilities into human civilization. We are not conquering the galaxy, he explained. We are learning from it. Every species we meet becomes part of our understanding of how to survive and thrive in this universe. The Ravik exchanged glances as they realized the true scope of what they were witnessing. Humanity was not just another predator species competing for dominance. They were something entirely new, a civilization that grew stronger through contact with every form of life they encountered. What happens to the species you study? Kira asked. That depends on their behavior, Dr. Walsh replied. Aggressive species that continue to threaten others usually find themselves contained or relocated. Peaceful civilizations often become valuable research partners. Some species choose to join human expansion efforts once they understand the benefits of cooperation. And species that refuse to cooperate? The doctor's expression remained calm, but something in her eyes reminded the Ravik of their own predatory instincts. The galaxy is a dangerous place. Species that cannot adapt to changing circumstances rarely survive long. As the meeting concluded and the Ravik prepared to return to their ship, Commander Thane found himself asking one final question. Why are you telling us this? Why reveal your true capabilities? Dr. Walsh stood and walked to the observation window overlooking the containment facilities. Because you have a choice to make. You can return to your people and warn them about humanity, which will likely result in conflict that you cannot win. Or you can help us understand the galaxy's predator species and share in the knowledge we gain. You are offering us partnership? We are offering you evolution, she replied. The choice between remaining what you are or becoming something more. The Ravik departed Research Station Europa with their understanding of the galaxy fundamentally changed. They had come expecting to help a weak species deal with dangerous predators. Instead, they had discovered that humans were not prey at all. They were learners. And in a universe full of dangerous creatures, the most dangerous thing of all was a species that grew stronger with every encounter, more knowledgeable with every conflict, and more capable with every challenge they faced. The galaxy's deadliest hunters had learned that humans were worse than any predator they had ever encountered. Humans were not just killers or conquerors. They were the universe's ultimate survivors, and they had decided to survive by understanding everything that might threaten them. As their ship departed the Sol system, the Ravik carried with them a warning that would spread throughout the galaxy. Humanity had arrived, and they were not just another species competing for resources. They were something that had never existed before, a civilization that became more dangerous with every enemy they encountered and stronger with every challenge they faced. The age of simple predator and prey relationships was ending. The age of human learning had begun.